So my name is Madison. I'm a trans woman, and I mostly like post content around trans topics. Although this video is going to be around religion and beliefs and my thoughts about these things. I know that this is a touchy subject for a lot of people. There are people who like believe and are positive on like their religious beliefs. They believe that there is a God and that their religion is true. And there are those who don't believe. Um, this video is focused around my religious experience, my stance on it, and what my hopes are on conversations regarding this. Um, I have a small issue when talking about religion, and that is that nowadays people are like extremely polarized on topics around religion, trans rights, and accessibility for treatments for like trans individuals. And when you look at like the basis on which certain people disagree, it is often due to like religious beliefs. Um, there are a lot of religious individuals who believe that transitioning is unnatural and that it goes against what God intended. Now, putting aside that just because something isn't natural doesn't make it wrong or bad, we can ask like a different question here, which is why should your religious beliefs be used to like dictate what other people do? Imagine a person who holds a different belief. Imagine that they try to make you do certain things or act in a certain way or put heavy boundaries between your behavior. They may make you stay away from your identity, your like sense of self, and put you in a position where you can't really be yourself. This is the equivalent of like what is happening right now to like trans individuals. The conversation has been so corrupted by people who have concluded that being trans is wrong or bad without like looking at the evidence and just trusting their religious beliefs and trying to force that into other people. I remember back when I used to believe, I would go to sleep every night, I would pray, I would think for all of the things that God did that day, for what He provided. I would ask for guidance, for strength and change. If you watch my early videos, I mentioned that I had a lot of trouble accepting with the fact that I was trans, and I pretty much used my belief to build upon arguments to why being trans was wrong and why I had to change. Looking back at it though, I had it completely backwards. You need to know what is true to get to the truth, not believe something to be true, and then pick apart the things that conform to your belief. But nonetheless, I like held my belief. I remember saying that regardless of like what it would find or regardless of what happens, I would never stop believing and that I would never stop praying. I now think back on those times and wonder why and what led me to cement myself so deeply into my belief. I quote unquote knew I was right, and I believed that there was nothing that would convince me otherwise. If we like were to like classify my belief at the time on a scale from 1 to 10, would be it would have been a solid 10, I'd say. But is this really how things should be? Is this the foundation that I should use to come to hold beliefs and ideas? To like cement myself so deeply into a position where I just cannot imagine myself to be wrong? I find this to be like pretty dangerous. And I also find that this is the state that a lot of people are in regarding like politics, religion, and moral positions. When you take a look, for example, at the types of conversations that people have around being trans, whether or not like people should transition or if kids should even be allowed to have access to trans care or even socially transition, we often see people who are quick to criticize and quick to ridiculize instead of like being willing to listen and consider what is best for the individual. They snap, they make fun of, they ridiculize, they villainize those who like disagree with their beliefs. What happened to like sitting down and trying to understand the other person, what they believe in and why? And sure, yeah, you can find this instance in like both sides of the political spectrum, but people who lean to the right and like are conservatives go like way ahead than people who are in the left. I've heard so many debates, so many talks, so many conversations from conservatives in which they mention that they want to eradicate transgenderism. They want to stop the mutilation of children. They want to stop the grooming epidemic. They want to stop the indoctrination of kids. And it just baffles me how we have gotten to this point where they actually believe and preach that these are the goals that leftists and trans people want. Um, People like Matt Walsh, who's like a self-described fascist, has cemented his beliefs to such a degree where honest engagement and criticism, any type of pushback at all, just turns into him labeling the other person as a child mutilator, a deviant, or a pervert. And that's pretty scary. Um, no, also, no matter how much evidence they are presented against, they jump back to saying that it is all biased and how um there is a political motivation to indoctrinate people and how you can't trust any institutions and that every type of study, any type of evidence that disagrees with them is just like wrong. And we should use our instincts and what is self-evident to like reach truth. There are other arguments, but like when you dig into some of the arguments that conservatives are making, you usually find that they loop back to a religious belief. One that people use is that God had an intention for like each individual, and for that individual to make changes to their bodies goes against God's intention. And is that would they say the same thing if they have a person who was born without legs and they get like a surgery to um get something implanted so that they can use a highly advanced and technological prosthetic limb? I don't think that they would use that same argument to do when it comes to like transitioning and having access to trans care. I feel like we should come to understand that although everyone can take a position due to like a religious principle that they have, we shouldn't use that principle to dictate what others ought to do. If we did do that, our division would only grow. Like personally, when I find myself feeling strongly about a position, I take it as a warning of like this belief being cemented into me. And although I may feel as something I don't want to do, I go and look at what other people who disagree are saying and what their basis for their belief is and what they use to back up these beliefs. I can now recognize that just because I believe something to be right, it doesn't necessarily make it right. And regardless of how strongly I believe that to be, it doesn't necessarily translate into that idea being true. I was 16 when I started to like question my beliefs. I remember being at church and the pastor saying the most heinous things about queer people and trans people and how we were the reason why the world was in a downfall. I remember thinking, hold on, like I know other queer people and I know that it doesn't align with what he's saying and what he is labeling them. So if that isn't true, what other things have they told me that I took as true, but isn't really true? I went to like try to study the Bible and um, investigate what I believed in and why. And at the time, I went to look at stuff that mostly confirmed my beliefs. I would look at testimonials. I would look at sermons from different people from different churches, from different denominations. Thankfully, I had a friend who like sent me stuff that weren't against my current view. It was an Aaron Ra video, and although I disagreed with it at the time, I watched it and it made me realize that there were people who had positions that differed and they showed evidence to back up what they said. I also believed that I had evidence to back up my position. So with this clash of positions, I started to like critically analyze the reasons why I believed. Eventually that came down to faith, but it got me thinking, if other people from like different religions also have faith and they use that faith as a confirmation that their sources are true, if other people do that and I also do the same and they get to different conclusions and I get to my own different conclusion, then I just can't really say that it is a reliable method to get to truth. I also couldn't say that the Bible was true because ultimately I had faith that it was true. Same thing with God. I couldn't say that it was true because I also based it upon faith. So I essentially had a belief that just wasn't supported with like anything reliable. And although this is a pretty short summary of my journey, it took like 4 years for me to get to the position that I am in now. Oh well, a bit more than 4 years. Started when I was like 16 and took till my like 20s for me to deconstruct my beliefs, my religious beliefs. Through that period though, I realized that believing strongly that something is true does not translate to evidence for that thing to be true. And that it is a sign to like question your beliefs whenever you start feeling strongly about that belief and whenever you start cementing your positions. Now, yeah, this means that you should never stop revising and questioning your reasons to believe certain things. And although it's time consuming, I believe it to be best. That way we don't get stuck in a bubble and surrounding ourselves with stuff that only conforms with our beliefs. If only people were more understanding, if people realized that although what another person believes may not be true, there is always truth in like the perspective that that other person has. And well, in the perspective, what I mean is in the mere fact that they believe that to be true. That is like truth. And most people really most people generally want what is best for others. If we like try to remember that and like focus more on like understanding and having conversations rather than like having like arguments with other people, it would close in that divide that we have and allow us to have more productive conversations and get to policies that actually matter and that actually look for the best interest of the person, not policies that align with a specific religious belief of a person. Anyway, that's pretty much what I had to say about this topic. I hope that this video was helpful or that you found it interesting at least. If you have any other topic that you want me to talk about or make a video about, leave it down in the comments and I might do a video on it. I have a 4-month HRT update video that is going to come around. When, I don't know, but it's on paper. So yeah, subscribe, comment, leave a like, do all that stuff, and bye bye.